Hey guys, this is Sam with Geek, and today I want to talk about the upcoming next generation of consoles. Now, Gen 9 is upon us, and the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 are about to drop. You know, despite this year being one of the worst years ever with COVID-19 out there, somehow Sony and Microsoft are going to launch new systems. Now, I don't know if COVID-19 has delayed a lot of the development on these systems or has made it very difficult for them to promote them sufficiently. But as it stands right now, the Series X and the PlayStation 5 look like some of the most boring console launches I've ever seen. I am not excited about either system. And to me, these are honestly some of the weakest launches I've seen from either company. And I'm going to start off with both of them. So I'm going to start off with the PlayStation 5. So the PlayStation 5 is a hideous looking system. And I just can't believe how bad it looks. It's a hideous system. It looks terrible. It's huge, and I don't know what else to say. That thing is butt ugly, man. Like I have not been more shocked at how ugly a console has looked since the original PS3 with its George Foreman grill shape and its Spider-Man font. Okay, the PS5 is ugly. They've also ditched their signature color of black for white, which is bizarre. White consoles don't tend to age well, as we've learned from the take it as a Wii and Xbox 360 user. They just don't age well. They look bad after a couple of years, and the sun and lights are not kind to them. So why they would go back on using black plastic as opposed to white plastic, and they use black plastic anyway. The thing looks like a giant router. It looks like it's going to be the size of a PC tower. Both of them are huge. They're huge consoles, and they're going to be giant, and I don't understand why. But that's the one thing. That's the first thing about it. Second off, Sony knows that they have the advantage. Sony knows that they have way more exclusives than the Xbox Series X does, and they know that that they can get away with stuff. They know that they can be less consumer friendly, and they're taking full advantage of that. They're going to offer a system that's only digital. They're going to, only allow your PlayStation 4 stuff to semi-work, despite it just using Bluetooth and should be able to easily work. I mean, it was kind of ridiculous that the PlayStation 3 controller didn't work on the PS4, despite the fact that the only difference between the two controllers was that huge touchpad that nobody used on third-party games. And they're once again limiting access with the PS4 controller. Despite this is going to be a backwards compatible console. Last time with the PS3, it was understandable why it wasn't backwards compatible. They switched silicon. The PS3 used a PowerPC based architecture for their processor, and then with the PS4, they went to Intel or not Intel, but x86. They went to x86, so it was understandable why PS3 games were not backwards compatible with the PS4. But this time, there's no excuse. This is an x86 architecture, and somehow there will still be some PS4 games that aren't compatible with the PS5. Don't know why. They don't really have a reason why, but supposedly it's going to be near perfect backwards compatibility, but not completely. And then, to top it all off, the accessories from the PS4 most of them will only work in PS4 mode. So, like the controller, that comes with the PlayStation 4, the one that is very. I mean, the DualSense, does it really have that much difference from the PS4 controller? We don't know. I mean, From the onset, it doesn't look like it. And we know that third-party games are not going to support the exclusive features within the PS4 controller. We know they're not going to. We know why? Because the Xbox Series X is going to allow the ability to use Xbox One controllers, which means third-party developers are going to make their control schemes work on that ancient controller. So that means the DualSense features are just not going to be utilized. And I don't know why they just didn't do what the Wii U did. In case you don't know, the Wii U, you could use a Wii Classic controller on a lot of the games that the Wii U had. And I did that all the time. I used the Wii Classic controller because I had one from GoldenEye on a lot of stuff. That was my main controller on the Wii U. So why can't they make it so that if a game says, oh, PS4 controller not supported? I mean, it's just simple. And it makes me so I don't have to buy all this extra crap. You know, if I have PS4 controllers and the PS5 comes out and I want to play with my brother when he's at my house, you know, when we want to play a game of Madden together or play Mortal Kombat or something, I don't have to buy another PlayStation DualSense controller. I could just have my old PS4 controller and he can use that. Why? There's just no reasonable explanation for this. It's just anti-consumer stuff. They want you to buy more controllers. That's what it is. That's all it is, guys. They want you to buy more controllers. And Sony just seems to be making more and more decisions like this, where things that are easily done, they don't want to do. They don't want to implement it. They want you to spend as much money as possible because they know they have the advantage. They know that those exclusive games, they know they're going to be the default system of developers, and they know that they can utilize that to make you purchase more stuff. Microsoft, on the other hand, is completely lost. They have no idea what they're doing. Like, they are trying to keep the Xbox One alive. Their most unsuccessful, worst console they've made. They're trying to keep it alive for some reason. I don't know why. You would think if you're Microsoft, you would just kill the thing. You would just pretend the Xbox One never happened. Instead, they have gone with this weird, they've doubled down on the Xbox One. They are keeping the Xbox One alive. They're going to keep selling the Xbox One S. They've made their new console name really confusing so that you don't know it's a sequel to the Xbox One, and you can get confused in the stores. I mean, say these unsold Series X's out. I mean, Xbox One X's out there. If you're a mom going into a store, how are you going to know the difference between an Xbox Series X and an Xbox One X? I want the Xbox X, the mom will say, and the store clerk will tell her, well, is it the Xbox One X or the Xbox Series X? And they won't know the difference. It'll just be a Wii U situation all over again. So they've made their platform confusing. They've made it more confusing because they want to keep the Xbox One Game Pass being their platform. They want Game Pass to be the platform. They want so that Xbox One users, Xbox Series X users, and that PC users will utilize Game Pass, and that Game Pass will be the service, and they just want you to pay for Game Pass. Good idea in theory, but it removes the incentive to purchase a Series X. In my personal opinion, why would you buy a Series X? These moves eliminate a lot of the incentive for someone someone like me, okay? I have a Series X. I have an Xbox One S back home in New Mexico. Next time in New Mexico, I may bring it here, back here to Baltimore. And I have a decent PC that can play, that will be able to play a lot of the new games that are going to come out on Xbox Series X. What is the incentive for me to not just buy Game Pass and just get the games on Xbox, on my Xbox One S or my PC? I could play, I mean, for the next 2 years at least, it looks like I'm going to be able to play every game that comes out on that system without owning the system. And you have to ask yourself why. Why would you purchase a Series X? And there's no logical answer. And for both of these systems, they are trying to spread. Microsoft spent all this time buying all these studios, and instead of trying to create great exclusive games for this new console, they're trying to keep dragging this dead one along, and they're trying to promote the PC platform, which they are not the most popular people on the platform. Most PC gamers use Steam. They're not. The likelihood of them switching to the Xbox app, I don't know. Maybe Game Pass will get there, but even then, it still doesn't tell me why I should buy a Series X. So, in my opinion, for a long time, I've been a huge advocate of console gaming. All right, I love console gaming. I love the idea of it, but this generation, there's never been a better argument for PC. There just hasn't been. All the unique and interesting ideas are on Switch. Like, all the fun, unique, interesting ideas are on Switch. And everything else is on PC. So, why would you purchase a console? It's become very difficult to make the argument for consoles. With the last two generations, it was a pretty easy sell. They were fairly cheap, and there were a lot of experiences you couldn't get on PC. That's no longer the case. Windows doesn't suck anymore. Windows used to be terrible. Even when Windows 10 first came out, it was kind of bad. Windows 8 was horrible. Windows 7 was okay. Windows Vista was terrible. But now Windows 10 is pretty good, and you could pretty much do anything you want on it, and almost all the bugs have been worked out of it. Also, Steam has just gotten amazing, and the ability for games to run on PC without having to mess around with them, it's never been better. Like a lot of these, because of these storefronts that have been created on PC, they could tailor it to specific hardware, and a lot of the bugs have been worked out. Basically, you just hit play now, and almost any PC game you'll know if it'll work pretty instantly, and you don't have to mess around with it too much. So it's not like in the past where you have no idea how a game is going to run on your system until you download it and hit play. You pretty much know if your system's going to be able to handle it, and it's also the cheapest it's ever been. PC gaming used to be insanely expensive. It used to cost way more to get equivalent specs that would run most third-party games on a PC than it did on console. But nowadays, consoles are super expensive. These new consoles, they're going to be at least $500. And the fact is that Moore's Law is dead, and the silicon in PCs basically hasn't been updated very often in a long time by Intel, and AMD, same thing. And now we're at the point where graphics cards aren't that expensive anymore, and RAM is dirt cheap. So keeping up with a gaming PC has never been cheaper, never been easier, and it's just a very difficult sell. Consoles are a difficult sell in this new modern PC gaming world. The PC is now easy to hook up to a TV. If you have an Xbox One controller, you can hook it up to the PC, and almost every game has support for it out the box on Steam. I don't know what to say. I've never been a huge PC gaming guy, but now it's very difficult to argue against it. Beforehand, there was lots of reasons you could argue against it, but now, like, almost all the incentives have been removed on the consoles. Couch co-op has basically disappeared on consoles. Um, Ease of use has kind of gone to the wayside. You have to install games on consoles now. Consoles now have upgrades. Like you had to basically, I mean, to get a decent picture quality or make it not sound like a jet engine, you had to upgrade your console halfway through the console cycle. So the longevity of consoles is gone too. Like there's just not a lot of good arguments for consoles these days in comparison to PCs. I mean, if you know how to put Lego together, you know how to build a PC, and if you build a decent PC, it'll last longer than your consoles now. Now consoles have like a midlife upgrade and all that. You know, with Gen 7, the fact is that you could have bought a PlayStation 3 in 2006, and if you were lucky, you could buy a Xbox 360 in 2005, and you could have used that thing till their last games came out around 2014. So, you know, for the PS, we'll use the PS3 because, you know, the Red Ring of Death on the Xbox, okay? If you bought a launch PS3, a lot of launch PS3s did not fail. That thing came out in 2006. That thing, you know, there were still a healthy amount of games coming out until 2014, okay? So you had 9 years of gaming on that machine. That is an incredible buy. And with the Xbox 360, if it didn't die on you, you had 10 years. 10 years pretty much of gaming. 9 to 10 years of gaming on those machines. That was an incredible value. With this last generation, you pretty much had to get a PS4 Pro. You had to get, you know, an Xbox One X. Or you know, like the original Xbox One, it had issues. So even if you didn't have to get an Xbox One X, a lot of people eventually had to get an Xbox One S because their system was just chugging. And even Nintendo is not, you know, exempt from this. The Wii U died, and very shortly after it was launched, and the Switch came out. So I don't know. In my opinion, uh, this is the best argument for these two consoles. Are the best argument for PC gaming there's ever been, and I hope that they get some unique, interesting experiences. I hope that COVID is a reason for a lot of this stuff going on, and that Microsoft and Sony start taking risks again. Because honestly, there is time for a new, you know, renaissance of gaming. Gen 8 was boring. I fell out of love with gaming. It took the Switch to get me to come back. Like, there were a couple years, you know, it wasn't just grad school. Grad school was a large reason for it, but I just fell out of love with gaming. And it had a lot to do with the fact that the Xbox One and the PS4 were boring. That generation was boring. And this upcoming generation looks just as boring. Anyway, hope things change. But right now, I would say look into getting a PC. Samuel out.